Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing the top 5 best infantry units list for Age of Empires 2. And keep in mind, this isn't going to be just civilization unique units. It's also going to be regional units and generic units included as well. I'm also going to be hiding a cheat unit at some point in the video as a little secret for fun. So if you guys spot that cheat unit, just be sure to put a timestamp down below. First one to do that gets pinned. Let's try that out and see how it goes. Anyways, onto the list of the top 5 best infantry units in the game. Starting off at number 5, we've got the Roman Legionary. Now, this is technically a generic champion line because it's not a unique unit. It just builds up instead of 200 swordsmen and the champion upgrade. It just combines into one for the Legionary upgrade, but it's effectively still a champion. Now, this unit gets a lot of buffs, so let's go through them and explain why they're just so strong after all the buffs have been included. The first one is the fact that they get an attack boost and a speed boost once they're close to a Centurion, which is their unique unit. So just off the bat, with no upgrades, you can still get a significantly stronger unit than your opponent when you have a Centurion around, and it's a very significant buff at that as well. And then they also get the unique tech Comitatensis, which is the golden crown for the Romans, and it makes them train 50% faster and gives them a charge attack of 5. So they do 5 extra damage on their first attack. After that recharges, they do another 5 damage again. On top of that, the Legionary has stronger stats than a generic champion with more armor and more HP at the cost of 1 attack. But overall, you'll see that the Legionary just does so well in melee combat, and the only downsides that it has is simply the fact that it's lacking a bit of pierce armor, and overall it dies to the same units that the champion dies to, like hand cannoneer and cav archers and those kind of ranged threats that are always a big threat to infantry. That being said though, I think the Legionary is an extremely strong unit, and if you combine all of its stats or all of its bonuses into one, plus the fact that you only need 1 upgrade in Imperial Age to get straight into it, you'll see that it's definitely deserving of the number 5 spot on the list. Moving on to number 4 here, and I know infantry units are a fan favorite because I've been doing a lot of coaching lately and I see you guys loving the infantry units. Now for me, I saw the stats for Hidden Cup and it showed me doing pretty bad for infantry units. I'm not sure if my editor can pull that up here for you guys to see, but apparently it's my weakest link. That being said, I still am qualified to talk about this because I play against a lot of infantry, so I know what's good. Trust me guys. All right, moving on to number 4, we've got the Kamyuk. Now the Kamyuk is an extremely strong unit for the Incas. Not only is it an anti-cavalry unit because it has some bonus damage against cavalry, I would even argue it's an anti-melee unit in general. The reason for that is because the stack effect of the Kamyuk with the 1 range allows them to dish out damage similar to the Step Lancer, where multiple units can attack the same target at once, creating a burst effect that you can find in crossbowmen or other ranged options where multiple units attack 1 enemy unit at the same time. This is incredibly effective in general, even for ranged units, but when you combine that with the fact that it's a melee unit doing it, Kamyuks have a lot of damage, more than your average ranged unit. And so when you combine multiple Kamyuks hitting the same target, you're going to do crazy bursts of damage and basically delete units in 1 or 2 volleys, or 1 or 2 hits in this case. Not only that though, but the Kamyuk is very reasonably placed, has a decent amount of HP, and once you get the unique tech, the golden crown for the Incas, fabric shields, it becomes even tankier in terms of armor. So the Kamyuk really just has no weakness. Once you get to this unit in late game, I mean, the only downside to it is the fact that it's just an infantry unit and lacks a little bit of mobility, but other than that, it pretty much does everything you'd want from an infantry unit, and is insane at defending trebs because it keeps any melee unit out, and it's tanky enough to keep some ranged units at bay as well. This unit has no flat out counter either, besides the generic ones like hand cannoneer I guess, but even against arbalest and heavy CA, it does okay since it has decent pierce armor. Definitely a solid unit and probably the best one that Incas can field in the late game. Moving on to number 3, this is a bit of a surprising one, but honestly, I have to put it at number 3 just because of how much play the unit sees. This unit sees so much play, like in tournaments, in pro games, in low-level games, in mid-level games, even in campaigns, even versus AI. This unit sees a ton of play, and its role is irreplaceable. Nothing else in the game does what this unit does, and it's actually the generic halberdier. This might be a little bit of a surprise, but of course the halberdier, even a very generic civilization with fully upgraded halberdier, it's a top-tier unit. It shuts down all kinds of cavalry play. It has insane bonus damage versus those like elephant units, those heavy cavalry units, even against camels. It's even okay against heavy cavalry archers as well, because if you can close the gap, you still do a lot of damage once you get in there. So the halberdier is just a staple unit, super strong, and nothing else can just fill the role that it does. You can argue that, okay, you can go camels or some form of unique unit against cavalry, but camels cost gold, and not every civ has an anti-cavalry unique unit. So Halberdier truly is fitting a role that cannot be replaced consistently across the board. And I think it's that reason that it deserves a number 3 spot on the list. And I also mentioned that this unit gets even better once you have civ bonuses. The best ones being something like the Japanese attacking faster, the Slavs with the Jushin attack, and of course many others out there that boost the Halberdier even further. I will quickly point out that civilizations that have just pikemen can be okay, especially if they have a unique tech like the Aztecs, like the Vikings that boost their pikemen, but I still think the Halberdier is a step above even those civilizations just because of the amount of increased bonus damage that the Halberdier has over the pikemen. Overall, it's a unit that basically sees play every time there's going to be a paladin or a heavy cav unit on the field, and it's a very easy unit to get to, and it's a staple in late game trash wars where there's not much gold on the field and your opponent might be spamming hussars. Going Halberdier is a very natural counter and a very effective strategy to beat that. Moving on to number 2, we're going to get back into unique unit status for a little bit. We're going to talk about the Huskarl. Now, the Huskarl is definitely deserving of its number 2 spot. We can 100% agree on that because of how strong it is against all archer units and all archer civilizations. It basically forces archer civs to play completely differently when up against the Goths, because you can't just go archer units throughout the whole game. That would be completely foolish against the Huskarl spam that the Goths can field. Not only is the Huskarl good against archer units though, it also is slightly faster than a generic infantry, so it's actually a very good raiding unit. Having that high pierce armor lets you tank town center and castle fire to a degree, and so you can just run into your opponent's base and raid their base and kill the villagers, tank their defensive structures, and just cause a lot of havoc. On top of that, it is an infantry unit, so it has some attack bonus against buildings and has high damage output, so Huskarl can also run in there, kill villagers, and kill buildings. Extremely effective when taking out town centers in the late game with a group of 40 Huskarls. I really like this unit. I think it's the reason why the Goths get carried so hard in the late game. Without the Huskarl, Goths don't really have too much going on for them. Sure, the champion spam is not bad, the Halberdier spam is of course very solid, but the Huskarl is that well-rounded unit that they need to raid, put pressure on all kinds of archer units, and also take decent fights with them since they have solid stats in their own right. The last point that needs to be mentioned about the Huskarl as well is that you actually don't really die to hand cannoneer, which is the generic counter to infantry units in general. Of course, the Huskarl does die to the hand cannoneer, but with the speed that the Huskarl has and the attack bonus against archer units, hand cannoneer being an archer unit, the Huskarl can actually take out the hand cannoneer as long as you come in from different angles or find a way to surround the hand cannoneer. In fact, if you get up close, I would say that the Huskarl actually counters the hand cannoneer. So of course, hand cannoneer is still a good option against Huskarl as long as you can defend it with some sort of meat shield like Hussar or Champion. Then of course, sure, the Huskarl will have a hard time closing the gap, but if the hand cannoneer are out in the open, the Huskarl will eat them alive like Huang eats the town center. Before I show you guys the number 1 unit, which I think you guys probably cannot guess, leave a comment below if you can guess the number 1 unit, because it's really tricky this time around. I'd be impressed if you guys can get it. No cheating, don't skip ahead and then comment and be a 200 IQ YouTube commenter. Be honest. We value honesty over IQ points here, because honestly, I don't have many IQ points to go around, so I just stick to the honesty. Before number 1, let's talk about the honorable mentions for now. I'm going to give a few. I've got a few that I think are actually equal in power level. They just see different uses because they're different units. So number 1, Woad Raiders, super solid. They were close to making the list. You could argue that they're better than the Legionary just because like the faster movement speed, they got buffed recently, so I think they're at like 85 HP right now, which is kind of crazy. 14 attack with the elite version. The Castle Age version is also solid stat wise. Similarly, we got the Samurai, also solid Castle Age stats, but even better Imperial Age stats, of course. Samurai attacking faster, pretty cheap, very fast to produce. It's just a very spammable, solid infantry unit that they can go for. Then we got the Chakram throwers for the Gajaras. This is a ranged infantry unit, but it's an infantry unit nonetheless. I was hating on this unit after it got the nerf, but honestly, I think it's in a solid spot right now. It's really good at killing trash units and really good at killing clumped up units in general. Has a pretty decent movement speed and a very fast attack rate, which is what I really like about it. Overall, I'd say the Chakram thrower is solid in some situations, but you don't always need it. Then we got the Sergeants. I think the Sergeant is an insane unit, has a lot of application in Feudal Age, Castle Age, and Imperial Age. I just think it's held back by its civ. Like Sicilians is kind of a bad civ, and the Sergeants, if you give the Sergeant to a better civ, like let's say you give it to like, I don't know, Japanese or Slavs or something, Sergeant would be broken probably. But just because Sicilians doesn't really have the greatest synergy with the Sergeant, I feel, which is awkward to say because it's their unit, the Sergeant just kind of falls flat, honestly. But it's still solid in certain cases. And then we have the Karambit as the last one for the honorable mention. Really solid in what it's good at, which is like killing Eagle Warriors and killing high pierce armor units. And it's really good at, being spammed. It's very cheap, but it's overall not like an amazing unit. So I left it out of the top 5 list, but it's definitely worth mentioning. All right, that's a lot of honorable mentions. I left out Berserker. I don't like that unit at all. I think it's like a worse version of the champion. I would always go champion with Vikings if I had the choice. Just want to mention that because a lot of you guys would talk about it. Not a fan of it. Left it out on purpose. I did not forget it. Moving on to number 1, it's not the Berserker, it is the Eagle Warrior. Now, Eagle Warrior is a regional unit available to 3 civilizations, Incas, Aztecs, and Mayans. And honestly, all 3 of them have amazing Eagle Warriors in their own rights. Castle Age, definitely give it to Aztecs with the faster production and the Monk Rush follow-up, and then also the Incas with the cheaper Eagle Warriors, which are obviously very spammable and very strong. But Imperial Age, I would definitely give it to the Mayans, and this is the unit that I consider to be probably the best infantry unit in the game. The 100 HP Mayan Eagle Warrior, so solid. It does literally everything, has a decent attack bonus versus cavalry, has a ton of HP, so it's really good in combat, really good at raiding, good amount of attack, high pierce armor at 8, which is comparable to Huskarl, which has 10. So very solid stats across the board, really fast movement speed. The elite Eagle Warrior from the Mayans basically has no weakness. Similar to the Huskarl, it could be 10 cannoneer if you close the gap. If not, just run away from the hand cannoneer and that's completely fine. And it just does so much for the civilization, and there's very few units that practically counter the Mayan Eagle Warrior in Imperial Age. It's incredibly difficult. Champions a soft counter, does really well in combat, but you can outrun it. Hand cannoneer soft counter. Heavy cavalry, you need paladin, because even cavalier doesn't really cut it if the eagles outnumber you. It's a very tricky unit to deal with, and one of the most broken infantry units in the game right now. But in general, I would give the number 1 spot to all Eagle Warriors, because even in Castle Age, they're incredibly solid, and they're what give Mezzo such a high win rate in tournaments and on the ladder as well, and the players that know how to play with them. They can be tricky if you're not familiar with them, so definitely some learning curve there. Alright, thanks for watching the video, guys, and make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you did enjoy it, and obviously let me know if you guys did find the secret for this episode. We're trying that out to see how you guys like that. Also, if you guys want to support me further, do consider checking out my Patreon for extra content. Got micro guides there, how to boom guide, build orders, all the good stuff, and check me out live on Twitch. Links in the description below. Thanks for watching, and see you guys later. Peace.